I used to work in the Department of Internal Affairs in Russia several years ago as a criminal investigator with the local police department. More specifically, I worked in the Kitay-Gorod neighborhood in Moscow. Back in June 2000, I was working on a 24-hour shift. In terms of crime, the place was a mixed bag. Petty theft and hooliganism was pretty common, but severe violence was not a common occurrence. When it did happen, it was usually in connection with business or political conflicts and were actually contract killings. This was especially common due to the local mafia that had a firm grip on things. They had declined a little from the 90s, but they still had a strong influence on the Russian economy. This incident happened during a patrol that I was involved in. 3 patrol cars patrol the sector almost every day, and this day was no exception. At around 3:30 a.m., we received a call for us to head to Solyanka Street in central Moscow. We got in and drove off. I was in the patrol vehicle along with a second operative and 3 other police officers. We arrived on the scene within 3 minutes. When we got there, we had a woman of around 30 years old waiting for us. She was a native to Moscow, and she was dressed decently, but was crying and muttering uncontrollably, just under her breath and to herself. She did not appear to be harmed, and she did also not appear to be drunk. The second operative alongside me, S, approached her and tried to calm her down. He proceeded to ask her what was wrong and what happened. We sat her down and began writing down every word, and we had to start over once or twice because she could not help speaking too quickly and bursting back into tears. When we finally got the entire story out of her, it really did not make all that much sense. Definitely not the kind of thing that we were used to dealing with. Here is exactly what she told us from her perspective. I had just left a restaurant on Pokrovka Street with my husband at around 11 p.m. We had left our car in a nearby alley that I cannot remember the name of. We left it there so that it was out of the way and would not be vandalized. I can remember how the alley looked, just not the name. It was already quite dark, and the alleys were all empty. The area was all strange though, because although the alleys were barren, the streets were really busy nearby. The alley was also lined with lots of one-story buildings that were all boarded up. As we were walking by one of the buildings, we started to hear these horrible screams coming from inside. They sounded hellish and like someone was being stabbed or attacked. My husband wanted to rush in and try to help. He is a strong guy and always wanted to help people, but he could not get in because the building was boarded up and he could not figure out any way to get up there. Even the windows were blocked and there was no sign of a door. We started to run to the yard because my husband decided that that was the way in. I shouted at him to stop and told him that we should just let the police handle it, but he did not listen. He told me that they would not get here in time and that the person would be dead already. He thought he could go in and just scare them off. The door was right there and did not appear to be locked. The door in the yard was covered in old newspapers, which was pretty strange. By this point, the screaming inside had stopped, so we stepped inside very slowly and carefully. It was too dark for me to see, and my eyes would not adjust, so I told my husband I would wait by the porch. After not very long, I heard my husband scream, and then I heard some strange sounds. It sounded like sobbing, but I could also hear chomping. I could actually hear someone biting into something very loudly. After 5 seconds, I heard a loud bang and saw my husband fall backwards out of the door. Not fall, more like he flew because of the force of something. I started crying and trembling because his hand was all bloody and his jacket was missing. I knew he was hurt, but he grabbed me and pulled me away to start running. He screamed at me to just run and would not tell me what happened. Neither of us knew where we were running. We could not find the car no matter how far we ran, and the alleys all looked the same. There was not even anyone around that we could ask for help. I pulled out my cell phone at this point, but I did not get any signal. Well, I did, but instead of my usual phone carrier, it was just gibberish, and when I dialed, all I got were beeps on my phone. I did hear someone on some kind of pre-recorded message, but it was all garbled and I could not understand. I don't think they were speaking Russian. We kept walking while trying to call someone for help, and we ended up reaching a dead end that was dark and deserted. My husband was pale and shaking, and I grabbed him and asked him what the hell was wrong and what happened inside that building. He was just frozen and silent, and he would not even look at me. He looked like he was going to pass out. I just started crying and went to sit down on some stairs. He told me that we needed to find the car and leave while I was walking away. Before I could even sit down though, the ground started to shake and vibrate. It was some kind of trembling, like something was running beneath us or moving, something heavy. I thought it was probably just the metro, even though it seemed more violent than usual. My husband ran up to me and grabbed my hand and told me to wait while he went and checked nearby. He told me to just rest there and then rushed around a corner. I told him to wait, and when I finally stood up and chased after him, I could not find him. I went around the same corner and it was just a straight line. I did not see anywhere he could turn so quickly. I started screaming and calling his name, but he did not answer back, and I started crying. I thought maybe it was a horrible prank, but he did not show back up. I wandered for a long time until I finally came across some people and asked them for help, but they refused to walk to me. They looked at me angrily and walked away like I was homeless and bothering them. I eventually got back to Soyanka Street, and that is when you saw me. After recounting this bizarre story to us, she begged us to find the street. Protocol tells us that without any evidence of a crime, we cannot begin a full investigation until 3 days had passed. Since she had not witnessed anything directly, aside from her husband just running away, we couldn't really help. We couldn't open a formal investigation, but we did finally relent and inspect the alleys since she was so insistent and so distraught. We kind of used a loophole. We were not investigating the crime. We were escorting a really young and vulnerable lady home in the dark after she had suffered a traumatic incident. We found the building that she was referring to, but could not find the area that she was talking about. She said she saw some weird named street, but it did not exist on any map of Moscow. The building was empty and dusty and old. The door was not covered with newspapers like she told us, even though she swore up and down that she remembered them. We managed to find the jacket the husband was wearing, part of it at least. It was only half of the jacket, and it looked like it had been cut diagonally by something razor sharp. There was no traces of blood on the jacket whatsoever, but it was caked in dust. We never found the other half of it. We found the car eventually. It was a rusted pile of shit, and the woman broke down in tears when she saw it. Started grabbing onto my leg and sobbing and telling me it wasn't like that before, it was brand new. The vehicle was definitely not operable, and even if it was, she was in no fit state to drive. I had another officer escort her home after taking another statement. The case went cold pretty soon after that. No trace of her husband ever turned up. I spoke with a retired captain about the case a few weeks after this event. He had a story of his own to tell me, and I will tell it from his perspective. This was about 25 years ago. I was much younger then. I had not seen a lot of the world. This man in his 40s, he went missing for around a week. His wife reported him missing, said he had never done this before. She told us he was not an alcoholic and did not use any drugs. He apparently left earlier that day to visit a friend down Kitai-Gorod, but he never came back. Around a week later, I was on patrol with another cop, and we saw this man shambling down the street like he was a zombie. We stopped and flagged him down and asked him if he was okay. He had a full-grown beard that was really unkempt. He smelled like a homeless bum who had not washed in weeks, and his clothes were disintegrating into rags. They were not typical homeless clothes though. He was wearing a pretty nice suit, except it was stained with mud and something else and was rotting away. These black shoes that he had on, they had a big hole at the front where his feet poked through, and he had all sorts of calluses and scratch marks on him. He did not respond at first and looked really dazed. He kept looking up directly at the sky and letting his head and neck flop around before mumbling something underneath his breath. He drooled when he did this too. I grabbed him and shook him to get his attention, and it's like he just snapped back to reality. He all of a sudden just started screaming. He went off on a rant about how he was lost in an alley on Kitagorod, how it was horrible. He told us verbatim, "I thought I would never make it back." We had to grab him and put him in the back of the car because we could tell he was losing his mind. The whole ride to the hospital, he ranted about this alley. He told us that there were people in the windows watching him. He told us that he walked for a week straight and found no one except these shadow people in the windows. I wish the weirdness ended there. Doctors had to sedate him because he would not comply. They found no drugs in his system, not a drop of alcohol either. They said that he was in shock and needed to be observed for a few days. I checked him when I could after writing up a report. I was interested to see where the case went. I thought maybe he was mugged and beaten senseless and that he could not remember because he got punched so hard. The doctor told me he had no outward signs of trauma, but that was still my theory. He was dressed way too nice to just be a junkie. Anyway, when I checked in the next day, they told me he had not talked all day. He would not respond and just stare blankly like he had a bad concussion. I did not check in again until he got a call from the hospital. He had gone missing from the ward. No one had seen him walk out the doors. We did not have CCTV in those days. I drove out to his wife and asked her if he had shown up. She told me that he had not been back to the house. When she tried to visit in the hospital, he started screaming when he saw her and had to be sedated. After that, he would not talk, so she just went home. We could not find a trace of him after that. I don't know if I believe the captain's story, but he's a trustworthy guy, and old-timers like him don't usually make things up. It's not the first time I've heard rumors of things like this, but it's the first time I've met someone who heard about it firsthand. Usually it's, my cousin's friend's brother in shithole Skya saw this, but never someone that you know. Either way, this is definitely the weirdest thing I ever came across in my time working for the police department. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I have been living in a townhouse with my parents for the last couple of summers, and before that for a couple of years in high school. For some ill-fated reason, we've always had terrible neighbors. When we first moved in, we had a woman and her teenage daughter who regularly sold heroin out of her room. Then a family with what seemed was the loudest, angriest chihuahua in the world. For those unfamiliar with townhouses, it's like having a regular house with all of the noises of an apartment building. The reason we've stayed for so long is my dad became friends with the owner, and apparently we get fantastic rent. Anyway, right before I came back from college one summer, my old neighbors, a middle-aged Mexican couple and their kid, left and some new tenants came in. I usually don't keep up with who is living next to us unless they're extremely annoying or they park on our side of the driveway. So the first night back, I decide I'm going to smoke a little weed and listen to some music. My room happens to be adjacent to an identical one on the other side, so when I open the window, I can see that there's light spilling out from that window onto their patio. It's around 3 a.m., so I wonder why they are up so late or if they just left the light on. But I decide I don't really care, so I go for my backpack and look for my pipe. It's not there. Without my peas, I resort to survival-style methods of getting high and decide to make myself a nice apple pie. I go downstairs to the kitchen, get all the stuff, come back upstairs, and I realize my window is closed. I look outside my room, down the hall at my parents' room, and it is closed. They were sleeping, so it could not be them. I decide getting high is more important than investigating, so I open up the window and realize the light next door is now off. As I move from the window to my computer, I hear my window shut hard and my blinds fall, all simultaneously. I turn around, scared as all hell, but nothing is there. The next thing I hear is my parents' door opening and my mom coming into my room. She looks pissed, but then the color drains from her face when she sees me looking very, very afraid. Looking afraid as hell is not the usual for me, so she is immediately worried. I explain what happened, but she dismisses it as me being stupid and trying to scare her. She tells me it's not funny and to knock it off and go back to bed. Eventually, my will to get high is stronger than my fear, so I smoke a bowl and go to bed. Nothing out of the ordinary happens for a few weeks, so I chalk it up to some strong wind, but I can't really explain everything, so I try to keep it out of my head. Come July, I'm usually out of the house all day, but that day is slow, so I decide to take it easy and look around on my laptop for a while. It's all a bit boring, so I decide to call a friend over. As I reach for my phone, I hear this ripping noise behind me, and when I look, there is a hole in my window screen, and the edges are jutting out towards me, meaning something just punched it from the outside. Except, my room is on the second story. My first thought was, holy shit, a ghost just tried to falcon punch its way into my room. Then to, holy shit, a bird just busted through my window. I spent an hour looking for a bird corpse inside my room and out on my patio, which my window is overlooking. I look up at my room and I realize two things. One, my window is now closed and I am the only one in the house. Two, the window of the room next to mine is not only open, but has no screen and the light is on. I rush back inside, and when I get upstairs to my room, the window is open again, except this time, the window screen is just gone. As in, it's not on the floor and it's not outside. Somebody or something stole my window screen. For some reason, the first thing I do is angrily march over next door to yell at the tenants next door for stealing my shit. But it's not until I'm outside I realize that's not even possible. The distance from one window to the other is way too far. I go back in and decide I am not going back upstairs until my parents get home. They eventually get back, but I don't bother to explain, even though they might get suspicious about the missing window screen. I reluctantly climb back upstairs and fortunately, everything is the way I left it. Window closed, blinds up. I move to close the blinds and notice that once again, the light is on next door. The light is spilling onto the patio when I detect movement outside. Somebody is casting a shadow onto the patio from the window. I pay attention to the shadow. It's pretty clear it's a person standing there, but that's the thing that bothered me. They were just standing there, as if they were intently focused on something and refused to move. Then, the light quickly blinks off, then on again, but now, the shadow is gone. I start panicking. Nothing moves that damn fast. It was literally in the blink of an eye. I close the blinds and sleep with the lights on that night. Just like before, no activity for a couple of weeks. Around the end of July is when my parents announce that they are going to vacation in Mexico. They want me to stay at the house and take care of it, and in exchange, I can throw a party or two as long as I do not overdo it. I am just ecstatic, thinking of all the shit I'm gonna do for a week and a half with an empty house, and I am not even thinking of all of the paranormal stuff that just happened. Days later, I drop them off at the airport and I pick up my friend, Karen, deciding to christen my temporary bachelor pad with a smoking session. As soon as we come in, we both realize it's freezing. By the time I get to the thermostat in the living room, she is shivering and rubbing her arms, even though she's wearing a hoodie. I look at the thermostat. Its thermometer is reading 45 degrees, but it's set to 80. Karen says something like, "Your heating is screwed up," but she is interrupted by a crash upstairs. She says, "Aren't we alone?" Feeling like I was not going to let this shit ruin my plans, I tell her, if we're not, we're gonna be. We rush upstairs, finding my bookcase and my desk on the ground. My books and pretty much all of my stuff all over the floor. She helps me clean up as I explain the last two incidents. Karen does not really believe in anything paranormal, so the two of us discuss some reasonable explanations for what's been happening. We both conclude that most likely it's the neighbors. They've been getting into the house somehow, and they are possibly using the window as a way to distract me. She convinces me that they have taken this shit way too far, so we decide that I should confront them and tell them that I have had enough. As we walk outside in the little light that's still left, I notice that there is no car in the driveway. That's when it hits me. I've never seen their car. I've never seen them leave, and except for that shadow, I've actually never seen them at all. I stagger and eventually stop as I come to this realization. Noticing me lag behind, Karen asks me if something is wrong. I respond, Karen, I've never seen them. Well, now you'll meet them. It's probably a good idea to get to know your neighbors, even if they sneak into your house to wreck your shit. No, I mean, there's a possibility nobody is gonna answer, because no one lives there. She makes a confused face, looks over to the house, then back to me and says, What are you talking about? Somebody has to live there. Haven't you asked your parents about the neighbors at least once? I explained to her that I've never cared, as most of the tenants move in for a couple of months, then move out when, I assumed, the owner got tired of their shit. Usually it was for falling behind on the rent, or because they trashed the place. My parents even told me that on 2 separate occasions, the police had asked them if they had heard any fighting or yelling next door, as apparently, they had been called on a possible domestic violence situation. Looking increasingly concerned, she muttered, maybe it wasn't domestic violence. What if whatever's next door has been bothering the tenants, scaring them until they move out? Now that no one is there, it's trying to kick you out. Taking in that possibility, my emotion turns from fear to anger. I could understand getting spooked every once in a while, but kicking me out from my house? Absolutely not. My newly uncovered anger affords me some confidence, and I find myself pounding heavily on the door, Karen behind me. Nobody answers. We could not look through the window, as the blinds were closed, and the glass was covered in smudges left by fingerprints. The rest of the house was surrounded by a fence, so I decided I would see if I could take a look inside from the patio. From where I could see that the window was closed, but that the light in the room was on. As I turned to Karen, I saw through my own window that the door to my room was opening up, slowly. My heart pounded as I simultaneously pointed at the door and signaled Karen to look. We both stood in silence as the door opened up ever so slowly, as if whatever was behind it was having great difficulty with its weight to get the door ajar enough for a person to fit through. The door suddenly stops, and into my room walks somebody or something, but at that instant, the lights in the room just explode, shrouding everything in darkness. We shield our eyes from the flash, and when we look back up, the blinds had been closed. But in that instant right before the lights blew, we managed to catch a glimpse of it. It definitely had a human shape, but as for the rest, I believe Karen put it best. It looked dead. In that brief moment, I saw its grey skin, mottled with bruises, its drenched hair fallen onto its shoulders, sticking to its chest with moisture. The purple-stained neck led to its disfigured face, like the victim of a savage beating, contorting its face into a permanent expression of anguish. What Karen noticed was the yellow eyes, decaying, the pupils now flattened like a goat's due to the rot. It was some screwed up shit. Any anger or confidence or rationale that we previously possessed has dissipated. We are balls to the wall scared. We stand in the patio, paralyzed, for what seems like hours. Karen finally speaks up. We've got to call the cops. We can at least make them go through the house. I call the police and tell them there's an intruder in my house. A squad car shows up and 2 cops search the entire house. Nothing. I ask them if they can search the one next door, but they say they are not allowed to without a warrant. Eventually they leave. We decide that since the cops have gone through it, it must be somewhat safe. We go to my room to find the window once again wide open and the blinds up. I go to close them, but I find that either are impossible. The window simply won't move, and if I had strained more to lower the blinds, I would have broken the string. Karen and I clean the glass from the busted lights. Exhausted and concerned, I fall onto my bed, and Karen sits in my computer chair. I tell her I'm out of ideas, besides breaking into the house next door with a tire iron. She says that maybe that's not such a bad idea. That's when I notice it. In front of my room is the attic door, and it has been slid open. I move quickly to shut my door and lock it. Karen looks panicked. Karen, do you think they searched the attic? I ask desperately, hoping for a yes. Probably not, she says. I look around the room, seeking bludgeoning weapons. I pick up one of those heavy marble-based trophies. She picks up a disused lava lamp. I swing the door open, only to find that the attic door is now sealed. We run downstairs, but instead of running out the door, I run into the garage, where I pick up a tire iron and a big wrench. I toss Karen the tire iron. She asks me if I'm high. I say no, and tell her if she doesn't want to come, she can sit in the car. She refuses, and takes a few practice swings with the tire iron. We march upstairs. I turn on the attic light, and using a stool, we gradually climb into the attic. Despite the summer weather, it's extremely cold in there. I spot what confirms my suspicions. Opposite our attic door is the door from the other house, partially hidden under a pile of insulation. Wondering why anyone would want to share an attic space like that, we approach the door, hesitant to go in. I lift the door slowly and peek out my head into the hallway. All of the doors are closed. Karen hands me the stool, and we drop down into the hallway as silently as we can, weapons ready to smash into anything. I decide the first thing I want to see is the room opposite mine. I try the handle and sure enough, it's unlocked. I open the door swiftly with the wrench raised, but the room is empty, devoid of anything. The room is completely white, except for a black stain on the carpet in front of the window. We approach it. It's actually two stains close together, in the shape of human feet. They are black and shiny, as if somebody had purposefully dipped their feet in tar and set their feet there. As we are looking, the door slams behind us, and we hear somebody descending the stairs in a rush. Alarmed, we both raise our weapons and rush into the hallway to find the master bedroom door ajar. We decide to check it out before we go downstairs. As we approach the door, we notice a smell emanating from the room. It's a horrible stench, and we both reel back and hold our noses. I stick out my arm and slowly push the door in. The stench did not in any way compare to what we saw. A fucking nest. The outside was made of newspaper, molded like paper mache into a roughly circular shape. Then in the middle was a ring of leaves and, I shit you not, matted hair. I looked at Karen, but her eyes were on the walls. I looked up to see the nailed corpses of several neighborhood cats and dogs. The smell was unbearable, but the sights finally got to us. Karen vomited and I quickly followed. I insisted on finding out more, so I go closer to the nest, immediately regretting it. Nested in the middle were several bowls, brimming with unidentifiable liquids. Some of them were watery and red. Some of them had what I recognized as the black substance that we found in the other room. Karen got closer as well. She was the one who noticed that the bowls were actually skull caps. We decide that we are way in over our heads and begin to leave the room. Once we were in the hallway, we realize the stool is gone. We search the other room unsuccessfully, comprehending that we are now in deep shit. Both the stool and the other exits are below us, so no matter what, we are going downstairs. We grip our weapons firmly and descend slowly into the pitch black annex. I fumble for a light switch and, surprisingly, I find one. The light is dim to the point of almost being useless, so we walk slowly into the living room. As we get closer, we see a brighter light coming from the corner. It's a small television, turned on its side, playing static. Karen whispers, "Now they're not even trying." We step into the middle of the living room. There is a small overturned couch facing the wall. I focus my eyes, trying to distinguish between shades of black. Way in the corner is something a little bit darker than the rest. I can tell by the way Karen grips her tire iron that she sees it too. I whisper, "Our best bet is to just kill it, right here, right now. If it's in the corner, it's because it's afraid of us, right?" Karen nods. That's when it jumps at us, making the most horrible sound I've ever heard. It was like hearing a death rattle backwards through a shortwave radio. We both swing, and we swing damned hard. I could tell I made an impact because I thought I had broken my hand. The thing squealed, tumbled over, and ran/staggered into the kitchen. We trailed it, but it moved way too fast. The last thing we saw was it bursting through the front window as we turned around the corner. According to the official police report, a group of homeless men inhabited the premises for an uncertain amount of time, and that's all as well, since we told the police all we heard was the window crash next door. After I dropped Karen off, I came back home to my room to find my window screen, hole and all, lying against the wall. Next to it was a black tarry handprint, and that's the last encounter I ever had. I never saw or heard the thing ever again. Nothing else has happened since this point. Here is a true story. I was a freshman in college. I was super high, walking through my dorm with my friend at 4 a.m. A group of what we wrongfully assume to be students approaches us. They start up a conversation. The conversation feels unnatural. They awkwardly shift the discussion towards God. They ask me if I believe in God. My friend says kind of, I say no. They ask me if I've ever heard of the Mother. Huh? They tell me they've created a student-run club called God Club and that I should join. They tell us it meets at a church in town. We know they're lying because all student groups meet on campus, not off campus. They keep trying to convince us to come. They tell us that we should come right then. Keep in mind it's like 4 a.m. We get freaked out, lie about having to go and meet some people, and we take off. My friend and I duck into my room and rant about how weird that was. We went to a tiny school, less than 2,000 kids at the time. I've seen basically everyone at the school at least once. I have never seen those kids before, and I have not seen them since.